Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Morning.
Always challenging moments with technology. We need to call the meeting to order, I believe. Could we take a roll call in the room?
Andrea Blum is here.
Thank you, Andrea.
Pat Swiffer.
Daniel Richer.
Danielle, thank you.
And did you hear me, Patty? Kat?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Kat. And okay, and who is online?
Megan Perkins.
Okay, Megan, great. Thank you. Anyone else that we need to identify?
Mickey Darting from City of Bend.
Okay, Mickey, thank you very much.
Carrie Prosser, City of Sisters.
Okay, Carrie, thank you. So thanks for joining us.
Jeff Wolfslager, City of La Pine.
Oh, and Jeff, thank you.
Sure, Patty.
Great. Okay, all right. Are there any comments to the agenda we have today? It said agenda review. We have had a couple updates to the agenda. Any comments from the room?
Nope, I think it's good, Patty.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, could we then go to approval of the minutes? Always challenging moments with technology. We need to call the meeting to order, I believe. Could we take a roll call in the room?
Andrea Blum is here. Here on the recording.
Pat
Swiffer.
However you did it, you're paying the recording.
Daniel Richer.
Danielle?
And did you hear me, Patty? Kat?
Yeah. Somehow you're playing back the recording. I have no clue. Welcome to my life.
That was weird looking at you, not seeing you.
You didn't know we were ventriloquists, did you?
Okay, Megan, great, thank you. Anyone else that we need to identify?
Mickey Darting from City of Bend.
It's still on the
Okay,
recording.
Megan, thank you very much.
Carrie Prosser, City of Sisters.
Still going.
Okay,
It's
Karen,
Treasure
thank you.
Bunny.
So thanks for joining us.
Jeff Wolfslager, City of La Pine.
Oh, and Jeff, thank you.
Sure, Patty.
Great, okay.
Reruns.
Right. Are there any comments to the agenda we have today? It said agenda review. We have had a couple updates to the agenda. Any comments from the room? Okay, are we done replaying the first 2 minutes?
So sorry.
Well,
Okay, we
would
just
it
did intros. Sorry, go ahead, Patty.
Would it be surprising that we would have technical difficulties? No. So, all right, glad you were able to fix it, guys. I know there was, our minutes are now on the next on the item on the agenda for approval. And I would like to ask for clarification. I was participating in the last meeting on my phone as I drove to Klamath Falls, but the end of item number 4, I believe it is, there was an called the technical committee, how they're going to analyze the properties given by the state. And I'm wondering, it wasn't listed here. When are we going to get that feedback? I don't see any kind of a date with that paragraph. And I'm wondering, was there nothing mentioned at that moment in time?
There was not a hard date that was mentioned in the last meeting, but we are planning to discuss and provide an update on the roundtable agenda item number 5. And we do have some more concrete dates to discuss at that time. But in last month's meeting, we did not set any hard deliverable dates.
Okie doke. Thank you very much. Are there any other corrections or additions to the minutes as they're presented? Okay. So now
I
what's,
will move approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
okay, thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you, Kat. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Okay, all right. Looks like we're now to item number 3, the COIC update and MOU discussion with Tammy Bainey and Eric Kropp. So Tammy and Eric, would you like to take that away?
Yes. Good morning, I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. Tammy?
Tammy Bainey, Executive Director of CYC. Wonderful to see everyone.
This is an MOU between Deschutes County and COIC. When we first started out looking at the MOU, we had included the cities, and we're looking to just move the budget from the county to COIC. But in looking at the legislation, HB 4123, COIC, of course, is not party to the legislation. Also, Deschutes County is the fiscal agent and has the agreement with the state of Oregon. So we're not able to do it that way. So instead, we are proposing an MOU just between Deschutes County and COIC. It talks about how COIC will provide functional support of the coordinated office. It will outline the deliverables as required by HB 4123 and talk about some of the mechanics. We have a draft MOU that the county sent to COIC. There were some suggested changes that we are agreeable to, and we just have a little bit more of back and forth. But I anticipate bringing the MOU to our board in the next month or so. Do you have any comments?
Bill, that was a great overview. I think really there isn't anything substantive that we would be concerned about. And so it's just the mechanics of getting it in front of the right parties. We're continuing to move forward, even though we don't have that agreement in sort of formality. The recruitment process is underway, and so we're not letting that stall us out there. I think the only request that we have at this point would be identifying how the CHRO office would like to be included in the hiring, meaning if you would like to have a representative on the interview panel, or look at the questions that we intend to be asking when we get to the hiring part, especially for what we are going to be proposing as an administrator instead of a director of the work. It would be an administrator that would be overseeing this work. And then of course we already have the analyst position that's in place, and then we anticipate the need for someone who would be helping with some administrative support. Not sure where the engagement might be for the CHRO office with that particular hire, but certainly with the administrator. Would love to have some involvement. So with that, I think that's where we're at.
Right, I honestly think it would be good for a member of the coordinated health response office to be there. Right, great. And I think it would be, I'd like to see the questions.
Great, okay,
Yeah, I think that would be just.
perfect.
Agreed.
Okay. Daniel, do you have any feedback for this?
No, I just think the more that we're involved in the processes, the better the process will end up, so I have got no problems at all. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, good. All right. And Eric, when you said in the next month or so, could we firm that date up? Could we say in the next month? Because it seems like our agenda just keeps drifting on, and I would like to see some real action taking place. So in the next month.
In November.
Yeah.
In November.
Great.
And that will be a further discussion with our group, because November happens to be Thanksgiving. And on the week of the 14th of November, AOC has their annual convention in Eugene. So I don't know if, anyway, we'll need to discuss that at the end of the meeting. So please think of and look and see if November 21st on Tuesday would be an adequate day. If you can just check that out while we're during our hour-and-a-half meeting today.
Well, just for clarification, the MOUs between Deschutes County and COIC. So what my it'll come to the Board of County Commissioners. I'm happy to, we're happy to share a draft with the Crow Board, I don't think we need to wait till the next meeting. We can share a draft just in case there's individual comments. But I anticipate just coming to the Board of County Commissioners. But certainly would welcome input from Crow Board members, and we could do that separately.
Excellent. So that can be done sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's, I do remember that the Crow Board was really concerned that the county was going to be the power person of this arrangement, and that's not what we're about. We're about all of us working together. So thank you for that. So is there any other update then with COIC? Is there anything else that we need to discuss?
No, it sounds that there's interest in receiving the questions beforehand as well for the administrator position. And then I would leave it to you to select who it is that you, one or two members that would be available for the interview panel. So we'll be in touch. And so I'll just look for your guidance on who you want to have representing you.
Okay. Okay. Sounds like a good plan. All right. Are we able to go then to item number 4? I see Mickey is on the screen.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the CHRO Board. For the record, Mickey Dirting, Strategic Initiatives Manager for the City of Bend, currently assisting with CHRO work. I'm here to refresh our memories on what's transpired since the CHRO Board bylaws was created. And for folks that are new to the conversation, to get them on the same page, a bit of background: the board formed a governance subcommittee with Chair Adair and Vice Chair Perkins as members. Out of that subcommittee, the CHRO Board bylaws was drafted, and by mid-June, it was presented to the full board for consideration for adoption. And all of the members of the board were aligned with the content for the most part, but had changes that I'll go over in a moment. And you also wanted to wait until you receive feedback from COIC board regarding providing functional support of the office. So following are the edits made since it was first drafted in June 2023. We added HLC and neighbor impact as ex officio non-voting members, meaning by virtue of one's office, they typically hold expertise in a particular area that can be helpful to the board in carrying out its duties. We added review and we revised review and provide input into the budget versus approving the budget, because technically the state agreement is directly with the county, and it is the board of the commissioners that are have the power to approve county budget. And then we also added language in there that HLC and neighbor impact representative are able to speak on behalf of their organization. We added some language regarding the attendance policy. We clarified that the public comments does not need to be at the end of every meeting, that it could be included, but could be flexible to beginning or middle of end of the meeting. We moved some terms under its own subheadings for clarification. We revised and added a sentence under terms for the staggered terms and the term limit. And then all throughout, we clarified the governing body in the CHRO board, and the advisory body is a committee, not a board or governing body. And then all throughout, we added the page number and adopted date to the footer. So all of those changes were applied. And if you are satisfied with the CHRO board bylaws and you're ready to adopt, you may do so by motion.
Okay, I would just like to make a comment on the paragraph about neighbor impact. These are bylaws. It seems like there's a lot of extraneous information in that paragraph, and particularly the sentence, until recently, they were the fiscal agent for HLC. Now, to me, that's history. I don't know why we're putting that in this information. It seems to be, then it brings up a whole new question. Well, why aren't they anymore? Okay. But to me, that sentence didn't make sense adding that in there.
Sounds good. I could remove that if that's what you wish.
I would agree with Patty. I think that's extraneous information for a series of bylaws.
Oh, and then, are you then done? Because I have found another one membership categories, your, there's a spacing issue on mental health or addiction treatment. You've got a spacing issue there. And then no term limits. Is that really what we're all about, is no term limits for people that are serving?
Yes, at the last conversation, you all had discussed not having term limits because this is not an elected body. However, if you wish to,
No, I just wanted to ask, okay.
oh, okay.
And then there's also a spacing issue on advisory committee, on roles and responsibilities. You're missing a space between related legislation and the next another bullet point 2 down, and making informed decisions. There's a space missing there. So, I mean, these are our bylaws, and I don't know if anybody else picked up any other typographical errors, but I just want them to be as perfectly stated as possible. Did anybody else find any other issues?
Yes, I had one I was just gonna turn in because it doesn't affect the language on page 6 of 7, membership. Appointment by the voting members of the board with guidance from non-members of the office. Voting members of the office doesn't scan well. So
So
you
it's
need
missing the
to
word
insert
of.
the word of.
Okay, thank you for that.
Patty, I just want to go back to attendance policy on page 3 of 7. I know we looked at this the last time, but when they're talking about a board member will no longer be able to serve on the board if they fail to participate in any scheduled board meetings for 90 days. So that's kind of random in my mind. Is that 90 days consecutive? Is that 90 days total? I think we just need to tighten that up.
Okay. You're right about that. 90 days.
Should we say 3 consecutive meetings?
I like 3 consecutive meetings. I think that would be,
That makes a lot more sense, doesn't it?
yeah, because that's just a, seems a
Yeah, if
little,
there's only one meeting in the 90-day period, then you've only
yeah,
missed one meeting.
I think 3 consecutive meetings.
That makes more sense.
Okay, is everyone supportive of that change?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I think that's great. Yeah, 90 days did sound a little, we could, and we could call an emergency meeting or whatever. So that sounds much more appropriate to the bylaws. So any other comments from our crew? Are we ready for a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the bylaws as corrected.
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are we good? Megan, are you good?
I'm a yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I just want to make sure everybody was voting. So, okay, that sounds good. And we'll get those corrected bylaws to the group then as soon as Mickey can pull that up.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll make the corrections and email it to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we go to item number 5, the Public Agency Roundtable update. Tammy.
If it's okay, can I sit over here so that I can
Absolutely.
see the chair? And I'll be by the tissue box just in case you're not happy with what I have to present. Okay. So Tammy Bainey, COIC, here to first give a lot of thank yous. There's a lot of work that's been happening behind the scenes, and so it almost feels as though kind of the duck and then under the water, there's a lot happening. And so I wanted to say thank you to Brooke, who's here with us today, to Lynn, to Amy, to Mickey, to Eric, to Chris. Thank you so much for the work that's happening to make sure that we can fulfill what you've tasked us with. Mickey, thank you so much for putting together the slides. We have 4 slides to go over really quickly. We thought it would be good to start with a bit of a timeline. And so we were tasked at your meeting in September with being able to set up a technical committee. So as you might recall, we had during COVID, we had an executive emergency leadership group that had been meeting with many of the partners that we were hoping to also engage on this particular topic. We created a subcommittee of that committee, and so there's a shout out also to Janice Garceau for helping to lead that. That subcommittee of that committee has met a couple of times, and that's where we were bringing back last month the criteria. You also looked at the values. You were able to establish what is it that you want properties to be reviewed under for us to be looking at possibly some managed camps. And so the groups have been meeting. There was the establishment of a subcommittee of that committee. And so stay with me, hence the graphic. So we're hoping to have that group finish their work in this next couple of weeks. They have met utilizing the criteria that you provided and gave us the go-ahead to move forward with. We're going to revisit that here in just a moment, so you have an opportunity to recall that. And so we have a meeting of the what we're now calling the Public Partners Roundtable. That was the previously known as the Encampment Strategies Group. That's the first subcommittee of the larger group. We're calling it the Public Partners Roundtable because really it's not just around encampment strategies. It's looking at lands that we might be able to use for a variety of purposes. And so, Mickey, if we could go to the next slide, that would be, oh, sorry, I'm not sure who's driving. Whoever's driving, okay, there we go. The request of the group is that we are
I'm
close-
sorry, may I interrupt for a second, Tammy?
Please, Mickey, yes, go right ahead.
It's not showing the full screen mode.
Oh, there
So
we
you
go.
might need to go to view and then full screen mode view, and then scroll down and it says read mode, full screen mode, select full screen mode. There you go.
All
Oh,
right.
still not showing. Huh, interesting. Okay, sorry.
Uh-oh.
Thank you.
Okay, Mickey, would it make sense to maybe send a copy to Chair Adair and to
I did.
Cass? Okay, very good. So then those that are, okay, so in the room, it looks fine.
Oh, it's
So,
fine on my screen.
Looks fine
Oh,
on my
good.
screen too.
It's fine on our
excellent.
screens.
All right. So we're back in the saddle. So really making sure that we are underscoring the values and that we have all agreed upon, which is that we will, with any property that is identified, we would ensure a comprehensive and broad community engagement strategy that will be put into place before the release of the information of any of these particular sites. We don't want the community to feel like it's you know, already a foregone conclusion. We want to make sure that we're doing this alongside the community. And so this on the screen is the criteria that the technical group will be and has been utilizing to narrow the properties. And I'm pleased, excuse me, to state that there were, as you will recall, over 80 sites that had been identified through our public agency partners. And that has now been narrowed down to 3 that appear to be very possible and 2 that are in the maybe category. And so again, this is looking at the actual feasibility of some of these sites. And so if we could go back to the second slide, that would be wonderful. The next steps that we would like to engage the CHRO board on is that we anticipate being prepared fairly soon, within the next week or 2, with a narrowed list of properties that we would like to be able to discuss with you in executive session. The reason for that is that, again, we are committed to making sure that we are establishing a very robust, comprehensive community engagement strategy. We do have a model for that, which the City of Bend has shared, which is that they have used in the past. We want to make sure that we don't get ahead of the community and create any fear before we even know what properties we might even be talking about. The next piece is that after that, then we would be going back to the technical work group and the roundtable partners group with any information that you want us to reconsider, anything that you want us, if that's too narrow, too broad. Those sites are both within the UGB, within Redmond and Bend. And we are continuing to consider, as guided by the governor's office and the CHRO office, a particular property that's outside the UGB as well. So we then would go back to that group, the technical folks being able to again put into play any of the feedback that we received from you. And then you have asked for a roundtable that includes our public partners to be able to discuss. We now have properties, we now have community. At this point, we would have started the public engagement. Again, we're coming from a space of not surprising the community. We want an opportunity for you to be able to discuss those properties. There's a commitment from public partners that are not being able, so the Forest Service, for instance, many of their properties are already built on. They are not meeting the feasibility pretty clearly. They want to be at the table with you to make sure that you know that they are a partner, even though you may not be looking at a particular piece of their land. And so they want to make sure that you are not feeling that any decisions being made, the agencies that are not necessarily impacted on that particular site or that particular discussion are at your side. And so then would look for implementation. This of course has many steps and details in between, the right and the left, but want to bring back to you that this is the space that we find ourselves in now.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the difference. So what is the, I'm not following. So there's the public
Okay.
partners roundtable in the after the sites have already been lowered down in executive session. And that's sort of going back to the original purpose of this whole thing, right? Which was to get everyone in a room publicly to discuss this. And then what's this Crow Board and Partners roundtable? Like, I don't understand.
So the thought, and again, this is at your discretion, but the thought is if we were to start discussing specific sites before we have an opportunity to determine whether those sites make sense for us to move forward with or not, we'll get ahead of the public process that we have agreed upon.
No, I understand that part.
Yeah.
I understand that part.
Yeah, so that's that part.
That's the second part, the technical work, or the first part?
Well, there may not be more technical work.
Okay.
So the technical committee will meet again to between the executive session and today. And so we will be ready to bring forward a list of properties that have been reviewed under the criteria that you have approved, and then be able to meet with you in executive session. And at that point, if you feel like we're ready to move forward with a refining a public engagement process and ready to release those particular properties, it's really at your discretion. So that gray box, that public partners and technical work group may not even need to be happening. It really is at the cadence of this group.
And you're saying next week, prepared next week for an executive session?
So we will be meeting tomorrow with the public partners roundtable. And at that time, we will have more information about when we feel that we'd be ready. That group is the group that the technical group is reporting to. And so we'll have a better idea of when we'll be ready for an executive session for you. So we can let you know as soon as tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, this is at your, this is our best thinking, that again, we're here to provide an update. And if this isn't the direction you want us to be going, happy to take your feedback.
Okay, you did mention Redmond a minute ago. Now, the county has 45 acres, which we have offered to Redmond. And then with the Oasis Village, with the surrounding the 10 acres around, actually the 2 acres of Oasis Village. So is Redmond part of this review also?
Yes.
Okay.
We still have needs in Redmond, Patty, as far as with the DSL land swap and other things. We need to establish a managed camp. So I think it's a good idea that our partners go through the same process that we would be going through anywhere else. So I think that's the goal, is to keep us all on even keel.
Okay, all right. Well, I just feel like Redmond has, I'd say, greater opportunity at the moment for
That's
getting.
a
things
great
done.
conversation for us, yes. So that's the type of feedback that we'll be looking for. We know that we need more than one site. We know that there are needs all across the region. And so, we'll be looking for what the best thinking is from the city of Bend, city of Redmond, Deschutes County, those that are particularly impacted at this first stage.
Okay, well, this morning on the radio, I was actually able to promote the safe parking program in Bend and pleading with the community, the fact that we're only at.
I understand why we, why we can't talk about specific properties. But I guess I feel like public engagement is going to be a big challenge if we're coming at them saying, this is all the work that's been done behind the scenes.
Right.
Now, and who's responsible for the public engagement piece? Is it us? Those are just some questions that I'm struggling with.
And that's a great question. I would offer that I believe our partners would be, so that we as COIC, as your staff, would be supporting whatever engagement that looks like. We would of course be doing that alongside whichever jurisdiction. If that's the property in Redmond, we would be working very closely with them. And again, that's that cadence after that executive session. We don't want to get ahead. We had 80 sites. If we narrow that to 20 and then we sort of share that with the community and they end up being really concerned about sites that really don't even have a chance of being able to be feasible, it feels like it might engage the community in a way that sets them off in a negative, fear, without us being able to share that we value safety for those communities that are going to be welcoming this type of investment and those that are going to be living in this particular area. There are some values here that we need to be able to make sure that we're communicating before a narrative gets set for you. So, but again, that if there's a process that you want us to be using that looks different, please share that, or we're happy to accommodate.
Andrea, do you have any advice? I know I read your comments coming from sisters. Is there anything you would want to offer the group?
I understand exactly, what she's talking about. Do we want to get everybody all riled up about 20 sites or about 5? And on the other side, you have, well, all this work has been going on for months and we didn't know anything about it side of the issue, but you're going to get it either way.
Yeah.
And so I think once you have whittled it down to the sites, the technical committee will be able to outline what was great about those sites that the other sites didn't have, and the reasoning behind that. And hopefully they will see, well, this has been well thought out. It isn't some, knee-jerk reaction of, oh, well, there was some vacant land, so we're just going to put it there. So I see this as probably the best way to go. If I had some magic thing that would make people feel better about the process, I would give it, but I haven't seen that magic bullet yet that has made the community feel better. But I think being able to show the reasoning behind why these sites were picked as opposed to other sites is probably the best we can do as far as the comfort level of the community when they look at those sites and say, well, yeah, I can see these were the criteria they were using. These are the sites that meet that criteria. So yeah, I can see how they came to that decision. It wasn't just because, oh, well, this is the side of town where the rich people don't live, or some of the things that they always come up with as conspiracy theories.
I would add to, Deschutes County right now is going through a process of siting a new solid waste management facility. And to your point, Andrea, I think that the county's done a really great job of hosting open houses and explaining, there are a few sites that are being considered. Here's why, here's how they score. There's also a bunch of other sites that we initially considered, and here's why they're no longer in the running. And so I'm not trying to chart a path for us already, but something to consider, maybe an open house that explains why we're picking the sites we have, why we ruled out the sites we hadn't, and just give folks an opportunity to provide feedback and learn more.
Something that makes sense.
I think that's a great idea. That's a
I
great
do.
idea.
I agree. And I will say it really ultimately, even after you've selected sites, there will be people that come back months later and it's news to them. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that you just have to realize that it's a process that will always be under scrutiny.
We all sound very beat down because of many of the past experience. Oh, we just wait to see what happens. One thing that that I feel like kind of got lost in the process is what are some things that we can do right now? I mean, I think when I brought this up, there was summertime and we had talked about, fire danger and this and that. And it feels like that kind of hasn't been discussed as much as more talking about future sites. And as we know, these things take a lot of time. Has that been in any of these meetings, has there talk about some kind of just general support that can be out there as far as either safety or sanitation or something at these sites where we know that there are a lot of people camping? And I know that's something that the Forest Service, really wanted help with. Has that been brought up in any of these meetings?
Not to current sites, but definitely what the resources available would be for sites that we pick in the future. Sorry. Did I-
Well, don't forget
I
what
didn't mean to
Yeah, I was
overstep,
just
I'm
saying
sorry.
in future sites, you
Okay.
can't do anything about the past. You gotta look to the future.
And
Sorry.
actually, can I make a comment, please? The camping code that the county was working on, apparently it's been sitting in limbo, but it's going to be brought back up to us, I believe, November 8th. Eric, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, we were working on a camping code. So glad that that is going to happen.
But just for clarification, the camping code, the discussion with the board was to possibly delay implementation of the camping code because of lack of places for people to go.
I don't consider us dwelling on the past. I think it's the urgency of now. And so I think we have to be realistic that sure, we may come up with 5 great sites and that we may get, 100, 150 people in a safe environment. That still leaves hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are living in, in a lot of squalor and a lot of dangerous situations. And, how can we all come together and provide resources to people? That I think that that's an important piece of this. And I think that was part of wanting to discuss this publicly. That was why I think it's important to have that conversation with all of our public partners about that.
May I offer a suggestion?
Sure.
We could wait, or we could have that roundtable before identifying the specific sites. And you could have that broader discussion about, the site specificity. I don't know that, I think we would need to narrow even from 5 down. And so, the public would have an opportunity where we've kind of created this short list. Then be able to have a meeting to talk about, we've now narrowed to X amount of sites. We are getting ready to engage the public on the outreach and what that will mean specific to those sites. What do we also then need, and this is to Councilor Perkins, being able to, what are the immediate needs for the sites that we currently have? what do we need to be planning for, both from a budget perspective as well as an outreach perspective alongside our service partners and our agency partners going forward with additional investments on the new sites, that could work really well. And then, but it just wouldn't be specific to the sites at that point, which probably is fine.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I think that has merit actually to kind of put that out there and lay some of our expectations for what we anticipate will happen when the sites are selected going from point A to B. I like that.
Mhm.
And counselor, you have a chance to talk to your agency partners and say, well, we're not maybe looking at your specific property. What would you be able to bring to the table to support us
Exactly,
as we address this issue together?
exactly.
It's getting close to winter, right? What happens for now?
Close to, I think we hit winter yesterday.
Yeah. First snow on the ground.
I think it was winter this morning at my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, 23. It was a little chilly. So yeah, no, we're already getting to dangerous cold levels, and I think it's only going to get worse this weekend. So, we really have to be worrying about people freezing to death, because winter weather is 7 times more impactful than summer for those that are outside. So, and then again, I actually aired, it was safe parking that I wanted to bring up, that the county is working on their plan. I believe that's what Eric is bringing back to us, but our safe parking plan. So I would really appreciate if anybody in the Bend community is listening to our meeting and has a relationship with their church, that they could add some safe parking at them. Considering the number of churches in Bend and the fact that we're only at 4 is really quite minimal. And those programs, they do have one of the highest rates of success. So just something for everyone to keep in their mind. So it sounds like we want to do something sooner rather than later.
Great.
So we're gonna bifurcate the roundtable.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we could do,
What can
we
we
could
do
do
now?
2, right?
2. Why not do 2?
Yeah, one soonish and one when we have more specifics.
Well, I think my understanding from Tammy was you were going to have more specifics and need us an executive session by next week or thereafter.
Dependent on your schedule as well. And so
So-
we'll know more tomorrow.
Not to get cart before the horse, but I think we should just do them together. Because it sounds like they're already gonna have part 2, so we need to kind of start off with, here's our expectations, what do you have for us, and then move down that path. And that also, for the sake of time, I think would speed us up a little bit, rather than having to schedule 2 separate roundtables and talk about implementation and getting us all together over the course of weeks. I would prefer one meeting.
And at that meeting, we can determine, do we need another meeting? Yeah.
That's
is it-
probably a better idea, because we are coming upon the ever important holiday season. And
It's so hard to get people.
yes, so definitely getting that one important meeting together with our community. Yes.
So-
Let us know tomorrow how that meeting goes, and then we'll get Chris to do a doodle poll and set something up as quickly as we can for that executive session.
So Kat, you're suggesting we do what meeting combined with another meeting? I'm confused.
Because Andre was talking about bifurcating the public partners roundtable between the immediate implementation needs and the site selection. And I
Gotcha.
think it needs to be one solid cohesive meeting, and let's just knock it out of the park and move forward, because it's the delay. I don't want any more delay.
No
Winter
more
is
delays.
here, and I just think we need to get going.
Yeah.
I ditto that 3 times.
So it sounds like maybe the week of the 6th.
Excellent.
And if you could just sort of be looking at your calendar. We'll put something together that would give us time if we maybe could even get something locked in. I'm looking at my partner in crime as soon as tomorrow afternoon, we could get a doodle poll put together. That way we could get the agency representatives, give them as much lead time as possible. And then oh, please.
I'm just gonna say it out loud. I am totally not available on Wednesday or Thursday of that week. I'm in CE classes and I'd like to retain my brokerage license. I think my
Yes.
brokers would like it too.
Excellent idea. Okay. Wonderful. That's helpful. So
Monday, Tuesday, Friday of the 6th, week of the 6th.
perfect. And it's been brought to my attention that this body may not in fact be able to go into an executive session. So I will work with legal counsel on what that looks like as well. Thank you, Eric. I like to live off the grid. And so thank you for bringing me back into the fold.
We'll double check.
So we will double check on that and do what is appropriate and meet with you in groups of 2 if necessary, just to get your best thinking on the particular sites. But that will not stall us out, just add a wrinkle. Awesome.
And I don't know if it's on the list or not, but the Gales Garden property should be on the list because I'd already spent 4 hours looking at all the properties from the state. And I didn't think the Crusher 2 property was really appropriate. Maybe there's some small parcels in the state that the team will think that are adequate, but the Gales property has so many things going for it. And the fact that it's 1 minute from Worthy Brewing, just the governor perhaps has to listen that it just adds a lot of opportunity for people. We've got to have some more safe places for people to go with their RVs. I mean, we just had a family that I saw next door and I spoke with Stacy. She hasn't been able to get them a location. They're in China Hat. They don't feel safe. And I find it incredibly frustrating that we have one family that we know of that are begging for a safe place to go. And we aren't able to find it. I actually asked her to ask Rick Russell too, if there was any way, but the gentleman works in Bend. So perhaps that isn't an option for him. So guys, let's hope that someone heard my plea this morning on the radio and they'll come through. Some more churches will come through, at least for the winter, with safe parking at their church parking lots.
And Chair, if I may, it might be a good opportunity to let you know that we are on track to open the Old Mill Inn and Suites, and that will provide up to 75 rapid rehousing opportunities for households in the area, in addition to some other opportunities that we believe will be able to come online with the executive order funding. So this is, sort of a lot of funding opportunities and a lot of initiatives going forward to be able to support our community members that are in need.
So Tammy, did you just say 75 beds?
No, it's rehousing. So it would be for households that would be able to then stay at that particular property. So those are new units that will be coming online. It's being renovated right now. And there's a provider meeting on Monday, the 30th at 5:30 to talk about the details of what it will mean to put community households, not just, so it's not a congregate site, it's not shelter. It is getting to the space of providing rehousing for people so that we have units for people to actually live in.
Are they kitchen units?
They will have kitchens, yes.
Okay.
Kitchenette.
Okay. And can they come with their RVs? Can their RVs and can they go into the parking lot? And can they bring their pets?
So pets, yes, I believe. And for some of the units and RVs, no to that particular property, but there are other options that, of course, that we're looking at too. And then we're also looking at places to be able to store RVs if someone wants to be able to get into permanent housing or be rapidly rehoused. I'm being careful on my definitions for funding reasons, but then we could store property as well, if that were, it's something that we're working on as well.
Okay, great. So that means that Bend actually is providing then almost 600 beds by another month. Is that where we're at, Megan? Do you know?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, all right. So that's good to know. 75 more people. Let's hope that some of those families that are out there can take advantage of this opportunity. That's
Yeah.
great.
Perfect segue into the next agenda item, I think.
Yes, thank you. So we're ready to segue. Okay, Amy Fraley, you're item number 6. And we're just 7 minutes behind.
I will talk fast.
No, I didn't ask you to do that. It's very important.
I
I
always
did-
talk fast anyway.
Well, I did discover when I was doing investigating at the Navigation Center that Deschutes County was going to go down to one behavioral health person at that facility. And you know that they have over 105.6 average people a night. And so I really felt that one employee from behavioral health was not adequate, and I let my opinion be known. And I'm waiting to hear that the county behavioral health is going to be stepping up with more help. And I know people are going to be moving. So, but I believe this population deserves as much help as we can get them.
Commissioner Adair, thanks so much. This is Lynn McConnell. It's good to see you virtually. I'm here to support Amy Fraley. Really appreciate you pointing that out in particular, because I'm really proud of the partnership that did get that human to hang out in the Navigation Center, which is through the state, Oregon Housing. We were able to request about $135,000 a year to pay for that FTE for 3 years to help serve those shelters. And so that's something we're proud to support the county with those resources to be able to provide that behavioral health. But we agree 100%. We would love to see additional activity and additional support and partner with you on how we could bring that forward. So thank you for bringing that up. And with that, I wanted to introduce Amy Fraley, our amazing housing stabilization and homelessness manager, something like that. I never get your title right. So good morning. My name is Amy Fraley. I'm the Senior Program Manager for Houselessness Solutions at the city. And I just appreciate the opportunity to come here today and provide an update on the Navigation Center renovations that will be taking place over the next 14 months. As this group may already know, a Navigation Center is specifically defined by legislation from 2001 from the session. And it says that a Navigation Center is a low barrier shelter. It's open 7 days a week and provides daytime services to move people to more permanent housing, as well as get people signed up for health benefits, public service, job training, all of those good things. And so what you can see here with our first slide is the overutilization that we have seen at the 2nd Street location. Our Navigation Center, operated by Shepherd's House, is the only low barrier walk-up shelter that we have in Central Oregon. Now, Shepherd's House will be opening a facility in Redmond next month. We're very excited and supportive of that. But as of today, this is the only place that you could walk up if you need shelter overnight and say, I'm here, can you help me? It is low barrier, but that certainly doesn't mean that there are no rules. And so we're very grateful to Shepherd's House and their partnership to be able to provide these beds. You can see in March that they were going as high as 141 per night with that big snowstorm we had. And we would typically expect to see with shelter that those populations and those requests, as the weather got warmer, would start to trend down, but that hasn't happened. And then in June, Shepherd's House approached the community and said, we really need to cap it at 100 people per night because the facility is just filled to the brim. But then we had a heat emergency and then there was smoke. And so they continued to open their doors and to provide shelter. Even with this overutilization, I thought the second slide here was really important. So they are transitioning people to more permanent housing, even when they're built to the brim. So the darker line indicates transitional. And so what we're talking about there is maybe a higher barrier shelter like Bethlehem Inn. It could be rehab resources. And then the bright blue line is permanent housing, which, as everybody here knows, is really very difficult to come by. Are there any questions about this slide?
No, I just want to comment though, Amy, the fact that in June of 22, the average number of people at the navigation shelter for the year was 75. Their messaging says they've placed 250 people onto either family or permanent housing, but the average for this last year, as of July 23, was 105.6. So even though we're placing people, helping people, our numbers are still growing.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I will share with the group that in Navigation Center, the funding went into effect basically July 1. So the Navigation Center has been open for about a year and 4 months. And so the city has been diligently, and the council's been very interested in continuing to gather metrics and provide that information so we can be accountable to the community in the service and these dollars. And then we can go to the next slide. So Shepherd's House, Navigation Center, low barrier. Doesn't mean no rules, but what it means is that you're not required to do case management. You're not required to engage in services. You can just show up, get a bed, and then leave in the morning. That being said, you can see with these numbers that the trend is increasing for engagement in the daytime. And there are 30 partners in the community, including Deschutes County Behavioral Health, that are there in the building to help with transition, to help people to sign up for public service, Social Security, veterans. All of those vulnerable populations are continuing to stay in the building and are getting served by COVO, veterinary service. And then of course, Mosaic Medical comes in, and so does the shower truck. And while there were, let's see, over the course of the first year, there were 354 unique individuals who accessed daytime services. And then you can see the trend up right there in the last 2 months that more and more people are sticking around and asking for help. It was 537 in September.
And just to point out, the most recent data that we have around the point of time count in Bend shows just over 1,000 individuals that are houseless in the city of Bend. And so if you think about the impact that this program is having on the houseless population, that we may have touched, nearly half of those individuals that are residing in Bend without suitable shelter, that's a significant impact. And I think part of why Shepherd's House has been able to transition so many folks is that repeated relationship building, the supports, and the recognition that that's going to be there for folks when you're ready. And that does take time to build up. So very proud of the work our partners have been doing, and the impact that we may have touched half of the houseless folks in this last month in Bend is pretty incredible. And so I just wanted to put that in perspective for folks, because it's something I'm very proud of our team for doing.
Thanks, Lynn. We can go to the next slide. I will say that the Lighthouse in the first fiscal year provided 38,542 nights of shelter, and more than 100,000 meals were distributed in through a contract with Family Kitchen. And part of the reason that kitchen number is so important is that's a picture of the kitchen at the Navigation Center. I have served meals with Eric out of that space, and 100,000 meals passed through that right there with that tiny dishwasher and one sink. So the city of Bend purchased an old thrift store in 2001, knowing and planning that there would have to be a significant renovation if this was going to be a permanent site. And we're very pleased to announce that the council has approved a 14-month renovation plan with a contract amount of $2.4 million. And we'll be starting, the new date is not October 30th, but November 6th. So we've got a little bit of extra time. The renovations include a roof replacement. That's a picture of the roof in the upper right-hand corner. We are unable to fix the roof anymore. There are significant gaps and it can't be patched. So it leaks, and it leaks all the time. The HVAC system also cannot be repaired. As everyone from the county might know, we were desperately looking for box fans and swamp coolers this summer because the air conditioning was out. And with the heavy smoke, we had to keep the doors open just to keep the ventilation going. So a shout out to Chris and Marissa for helping us with that at the county. The bathrooms are typical bathrooms that you would see in a thrift shop. There's single stalls and people can go in and lock the door. There are no showers in the building, which means the shower truck has to come, and it is supported by volunteers, and so that's incredibly limited hours. So you're talking about more than 100 people in a building without access to showers or sufficient bathrooms. The septic is inadequate. There's a period over the summer where the pipe, because it is so small, had backed up. We did not have any indoor bathrooms. So there were porta potties out in the parking lots. Laundry for clients and for Shepherd's House. One of the most powerful interactions I've had at that facility was a young woman who approached me. She was working between 50 and 60 hours per week. She was an assistant manager at a nearby fast food establishment. So she walked to work, she'd walk back, she was doing all the right things. And she said, the hardest thing for me is I can't keep my uniform clean. They only give me 2. And so she was coming back, she couldn't get to a coin operated laundromat because her hours were off and she was working into the evening. And she's like, that with not being able to shower and the grease is in my hair. And she's like, it's so hard. And so with this renovation, we can remove some of those very basic barriers that we take for granted. We'll also have the opportunity to frame out a commercial kitchen. The health department is very excited because we'll have sanitation capabilities, whereas the dishwasher there, anyone who's ever had someone over to their house, even if you're using paper plates, there's still a couple of utensils, there's still things that you have to wash. And the dishwasher and the current climate, we can't get things up to temp. It's very difficult to hold things at the correct temperature, whether it be hot or cold. And so we can't do the full kitchen at this time, but we're really excited that on the next slide, you can see that there will be a cooling area. There will be a walk-in freezer there in the back, and we will have the ability to wash family kitchens, pots and pans when they drop that off, and some utensils, and maybe save money that way too, not going through as many disposable items.
Amy?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
It's Commissioner Adair. I do have a question. I know, I think you all saw what happened to Redmond and that recreation center that they were going to build, and now it's going to be not quite what they had thought. What if this, the budget at 2.4 million, what are you expecting it to be held firm at that amount?
Yes, so we had a competitive bid process and we were able to include many elements of the kitchen because the bid came in right around where we expected, and we were pleasantly surprised, even with some inflationary factors and some delays in the supply chain. But these dollars are dollars that have been set aside by the city and the council. And so we are confident with our contracting and the process that's in place with facilities and engineering that we can hit that dollar.
Oh, excellent. No, great to hear. It sounds like our Sun River Public Safety Building, those people have been right on budget. You know, they know that's what they have to live with. So thank you.
Thank you. So the question becomes, how do we continue these very vital services? And I'll tell you, it takes a considerable amount of work and some shuffling around, but I wanted to let everyone know that those beds are in place. So what we're going to do is 50 folks will still be able to get walk-up shelter at the Navigation Center. And so that'll be open just about 6 p.m. The construction company will shut down, lock everything up, and then Shepherd's House staff will come in, double check the facility, and then bring 50 people in. They'll receive 2 meals. And then at the former Rainbow Motel, in the front of the building, anybody who's been there will be able to offer 40 beds. Folks have been starting to go over to that facility. There are 22 units, and so we'll be using 21 of those. And so that will be the Navigation extension. The back of the former Rainbow Motel will continue to be the COIC Governor's Order Franklin Avenue shelter that has 60 beds, and 59 of those beds are filled as of this morning. That they'll continue to have a set aside for families. Most of the folks using that facility are families or have a family member that's experiencing some kind of medical vulnerability. So that it is at capacity there in the back. We'll take those rooms in the front and be able to provide some low barrier walk-up shelter. I am delighted and very grateful to confirm that COIC and Neighbor Impact, the city and Shepherd's House are all working together to offer day services in the former Blue Dog Navigation, that's what we're gonna call it now. The former Blue Dog RV property, which is right across the street from the former Rainbow Motel. And so this is just a terrific show of partnership and everyone coming together to guarantee or best ensure that all of the beds that the city needs or counted on and the community needs are going to be in place. And that we can have day services for 14 months. There will be a lease in place for $1. Thank you, Tammy and Chris. And we'll be fixing up that facility and hope to have it ready by that construction start date of November 6th. It'll just be open during the day. Folks will have the opportunity to come down from the 2nd Street site or come across the street to meet with behavioral health or their case manager, and also to get meals there as well. And that is our plan for the next 14 months.
Okay, so what about, because we're averaging 105.6, where are some of those going to be going over to the new facility at Old Mill that Tammy was referring to?
We can hope.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Dare, that's always sort of the $1 million question, right? Is all the what ifs, and knowing that even though we're seeing 500 folks a month into services, there's still so many out there. What we were really intrigued by, if it's okay, is when we did open up the Rainbow Motel again recently, there were a number of families with children that had not been anywhere on lists or within our system so far, but have been working and camping in our community or outside of our community. And the opportunity to have a room for their households brought them forth and they're now engaged with the services and able to move forward. There are folks out there that we know are not being counted in any way. We're all aware that the pit count is an undercount, but having these spaces does lead to folks actually coming and engaging in a different way. And so we're hopeful that with Old Mill and its suites, with the other discussions that this group is having, that having those facilities will allow people to move forward. I see this as the first rung on the ladder of the housing continuum, right? You need to get a foot in the door when you're working and kind of have the other pieces in place in order to move into our housing market, because it's just so challenging. And so this has been a great opportunity, but without a doubt, we're aware that we do not have the facilities that are needed by our community members facing this challenge, because it is so hard to get a grasp into the market.
Honestly, when I was at the Navigation Center last, I had someone walk up to me. They traveled across the US, and he and his wife, and they had just gotten to Bend, and they were so happy they were here. So, there is that message out there. And that's why I do believe that, even for the successes, it seems like our numbers are growing.
Yeah.
A little cautionary tale. It's amazing what's being done and what is going to be done. And it's overwhelming. The more you provide the recognition of, like you said, people who you weren't even aware of that are participating with it. But as you expand services similar to this to the Redmond, make sure that part of what's being done is bringing along the neighborhood. Because when we talked about just having a cold weather shelter and sisters, not a navigation center necessarily, but a cold weather shelter with some services possibly being provided. We had business owners and employees who are near the Navigation Center in Bend who took the time to come to Sisters and testify that this would not stay a cold weather shelter. It would become and grow as the need became more, as the community became more aware of the need, and people in the community became more aware of the services. And those business owners and those employees who were near the Navigation Center said, do not, under any circumstances, allow this to happen in your community. That it has been a horror story for their businesses, that it is a horror story for people who work in the area, and that they don't feel that they were aware and understood what the impacts were going to be in the community, and that they're not being heard, and that under no circumstances should the city council allow anything like that in Sisters. And it was just devastating to our community to hear that. And as much as the applicants said, well, that's not exactly what we're proposing, they said, oh, but it will be. They all, that always say, oh, we're just gonna do this little thing, but then the real need becomes apparent and it grows and it grows. And so you absolutely have to bring the people surrounding these facilities into an advisory committee or to walk them through what can be done to make sure the community is respected and that those people have are able to come forward and say what's not working for them and why it isn't, they don't feel safe in their own business. So.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for that. I appreciate hearing that. We certainly have been engaged, I'd say frequently with some of the neighbors. I'll be frank that there are some neighbors that will not be satisfied unless that facility shuts down. That's the only answer that is acceptable. And that's not something that's within our reality. And so we're continuing to work with them on sort of what those parameters are, and we'll do that as well. Something to keep in mind is that we are aware that a large facility does create more feel for the nearby neighbors than a smaller facility does. And I think best practice absolutely has led us to a number of smaller facilities spread throughout every community so that the impact to those nearby neighbors does feel less. This is one of the largest shelters in the state on 2nd Street.
Wow.
And absolutely, it would not be so large if we had additional facilities set up for folks throughout the community. So that's one of the things. We're also aware that people are coming from other communities to Bend in Central Oregon because we are the only low barrier walk up. And so we're hopeful that with this larger group, we can reduce some of that impact on neighbors, absolutely, because we're aware of it. We also cannot, unfortunately, just say, okay, we're done. It'll go back to being a thrift shop. That's not the world that we can live in. We have to move forward in order to be able to manage our streets and other things. And so, without a doubt, I think there are solutions to be found in working together and bringing forward some more sort of less impactful models. Similarly, I'll say on the other side of that, safe parking. Our council was talking the other day, we have a number of safe parking sites. Thank you, Commissioner Dare, for doing the work with the faith-based community. We've been doing as much as we can, and it's great to have that message be called out from the rooftops by folks in power. We have yet to hear a single complaint, knock on wood, about any of our safe parking sites. That's a great model. 5 folks, right, or 5 different sites, up to 5 or 6 in one location, so much less impactful. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to, I think, here from the technical staff perspective, is how do we bring these services that are so needed for all of us, community members and public land managers alike, to the table to try to make it a little less impactful for the folks surrounding so that we can move forward. Thank you for that. I think that's.
Can I add just one?
You guys, we're losing our time schedule.
Oh,
So
sorry.
make this the very last succinct message, and then
Perfect.
we do need to move on. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
No, that, and I wasn't fast after I said that. And the city of Bend and council has made it a priority to have robust good neighbor agreements in place. And so those might not always be the answer that people are looking for, but with Stepping Stone, it has been incredibly effective with neighbor impact and their capacity. And in addition, Downtown Business Association and the Corps chose to sign a good neighbor agreement for the Franklin Avenue shelter. And I have received 1 complaint in, I think, 9 months. So it works.
Be done.
It can be done.
Can be done.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're actually at our community updates. So the board, would you like to give any updates? I will give mine first. I do want to say that 5 fentanyl babies were born at St. Charles Hospital in the last 60 days. And then, of course, I'm hearing the stories about parents that can't stop doing fentanyl. And one family who had their own house lost their 3 children because of what they were doing with drugs. So, and this is not just happening in in Deschutes County at St. Charles, it's a valley issue too. I'm waiting to hear back from some of the commissioners in the valley, but that's what I'm hearing. Fentanyl babies are being born, and you know, it's so impactful. That child never had a chance, never had a chance. So I just wanted this entire group to be aware of what is happening in our community with the drug use. So, Dan, do you have any updates?
Actually, Lapine's pretty stable still. Our warming center will be open extended hours coming up pretty soon just because of the weather. Community kitchen still serves meals every day, and St. Vincent provides, you know, groceries and stuff to families. So, I mean, nothing's really changed in South County where I'm at very much.
Well, it was like 21 or something there this morning, wasn't it?
I had an inch of snow on the ground, so.
Okay. Okay. So that warming shelter, you don't have a date then? Is it weather dependent?
It's open intermittently right now, but I would have
Okay.
to check with Chad to see what extended hours they're gonna be doing, but it's all kind of weather pertinent.
Okay, great. Kat, do you have any updates for Redmond?
Sure. So Oasis Village had the slab in, and they are dropping the community building in this week. So we should get that all connected, moving along quite quickly there. Ribbon cutting for the Shepherd's House is this next week. I forgot the date, so I apologize for that, but I believe it's on the 4th. And then I will say that our winter warming shelters are supposed to open on or about the 15th, but I will have to check with Pastor Rick and with Shepherd's House because they may move that up given these temperatures.
Great. I think, yeah, it's supposed to get really bad this weekend. Andrea, do you have anything else you want to add from Sisters?
We are also, have not been approached with any place that's willing to be a warming shelter, nor has the cold weather shelter folks been able or come to us with a request to open any place for it. So we're looking at our public partners in the community to see whether we can get an agreement with them to possibly open up. So we're working on it. Trying.
Okay, did you hear anything about the funding for that 40 apartment low-income housing project that needed funding from the state? I talked to several state people about it at the Rooted Home event. And have you guys heard any positive feedback?
No, they say November, mid-November, we should have an answer. So we're still waiting.
Okay, because I just said, oh my gosh, they need this funded. It needs to be, you know, it needs to be built. Megan.
I think you heard from two far more impressive representatives than I about what's going on with our navigation center. So I will just leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Megan. Okay, so Colleen Sinsky, would you love to do your presentation now?
Sure, is there a best place for me to sit?
Yeah, come up here. These seats, the camera can't really catch you, so over here is better.
Yes, that is much better. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Colleen Sinsky, and I'm the Executive Director of Central Oregon Fuse. I'm here to talk about Fuse as an overview as far as solutions that we're working on to address homelessness. Chris, are you controlling this?
Andy should run it today.
You can go to the next slide. So Fuse has been around since 2019. We started as a collaboration that included the City of Bend manager, law enforcement, Deschutes County Health Services, with the goal of mobilizing resources and working across sectors to address homelessness by addressing gaps in the continuum. So across all three of our programs, our goal is to end homelessness permanently. So we very much support our transitional housing and shelter providers, but our focus is always on permanent housing. And we also operate from the perspective that housing is healthcare, so we collaborate pretty closely with the healthcare system. We're working on addressing homelessness through 3 distinct programs, 2 of which target the chronically homeless population, which is folks living with disabling conditions. And then the Housing Barrier Busting Fund has a more broad reach. So our neighborhood-based housing program is what's called a scattered site permanent supportive housing, where we're paying ongoing rental assistance and providing in-home case management for folks. And then we're helping coordinate support services at Cleveland Commons and hopefully future permanent support housing developments. You can go to the next slide. So I'll run through the 3 programs pretty quickly. And hopefully you have a copy of these slides somewhere. Great.
They're on the packet.
Perfect. So I'm not going to cover everything on this because there's a lot of information and I can really get in the weeds and talk for a long time. So this model, the scattered site permanent supportive housing, we're working with REACH and we're kind of grading funding from the HUD Continuum of Care, City of Bend, CDBG, Central Oregon Health Council, and Pacific Source, so that we can create that wraparound case management along with rental assistance. We're currently serving 10 folks who are chronically homeless, most of which moved directly from Juniper Ridge, China Hat, or a similar living situation. They moved directly from there into housing. I'm really pleased to report that we still have 100% housing retention. And for most folks, it's been about 2 to 3 years. The overall cost for that, including rental assistance, case management, and like our portion of like program overhead, comes out to just $47 a day, which is incredible given that we were kind of referred like some of the more vulnerable or challenging folks in the region who wouldn't have been considered.
$47 a day per person?
Per person per day.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I think some folks in this room were in this photo or just outside the frame, but we're also working on coordinating support services at the upcoming Cleveland Commons development in partnership with Housing Works and others. And this is going to be Central Oregon's first purpose-built permanent supportive housing program. We're really excited about this making a dent in chronic homelessness and being the start of what will hopefully be a replicable model. I'm fortunate that that has been funded both through the county and the city, CET funding, ARPA, and we're also bringing some HUD funding to the table and OHCS. That'll be staffed 24/7. Shepherd's House is going to be the on-site service provider. We're going to have locked, secure entry, community meeting rooms, flexible on-site office space. And the goal is to really wrap around and come up with support services and healthcare connections for some of the more vulnerable, medically vulnerable, chronically homeless folks in our region. This has been kind of in the works since 2019, building the partnerships, and we're so pleased that we got to celebrate the groundbreaking last week, the week before, and that's anticipated to open in fall of next year. I think what's really significant about this project is that it represents one of the first very significant collaborations between a lot of the partners in this space, Housing Works, Deschutes County Behavioral Health, Mosaic Community Health, Neighbor Impact, Epic Property Management. It's like all these partners really taking a risk and stepping into this space together. Fuse's role in that has kind of been, oh, and I should have Shepherd's House logo on there. And Fuse's role has been to connect and support the partners, make sure that we have secure funding for the next 10 years, because permanent supportive housing doesn't really happen in like a 1 to 2 year grant cycle. We need to know that we can provide those services sustainably. We're also prepping for the Medicaid 115 waiver so that we could take advantage of that to fund services, and working on aligning all of our services and intake procedures with the various funding sources requirements, and also with fair housing, coordinated entry system, kind of making sure that we're checking all those boxes, because the funding sources aren't necessarily talking to each other. So it takes a lot of coordination to make that all work. Go to the next slide. I think, did we jump ahead one?
Yeah.
So I'll just start talking about the Housing Barrier Busting Fund. This program evolved out of a recognition that as important as permanent supportive housing is, we as a small organization can't do it all. And our partners are providing such important services that our role as a collaborative partner and a mobilizer of resources is to support funding getting to the most efficient use it can. So based on my own experience in doing housing navigation and street outreach and our partner relationships, we created and now steward a fund that all of our partner agencies can access for that one last piece of funding that's required to get folks into housing. In order for us to approve a request, it has to be coming from an established partner agency. The client needs to be currently in services and unhoused. The housing opportunity has to be verified as safe and stable. They're not going to get evicted after 3 months. Like, we need to know that we're supporting long-term sustainability, and the expense has to be tied to that housing opportunity. So you can jump to the, no, actually, can you go back 2 slides? I think we might have missed one. Sorry. Yeah, this one I'll just briefly mention that this is again, a pilot program. I give everybody that disclaimer because it just started in January. We're constantly working on making it better and evolving in a responsive way. But we know that so many folks are experiencing barriers, just like that one last piece, that say that they're getting a VASH voucher as a veteran, or they're getting Section 8 voucher, but coming in with poor credit score, the landlord is requiring a double deposit. And if the voucher can't pay that double deposit, they're kind of sentenced to homelessness for the foreseeable future. So we can come in and just kind of quickly pay that additional security deposit. Other barriers that people experience are having a criminal history, not having rental history, lack of ID or birth certificate, mental health challenges, you're not having an address, stable phone or transportation. So this fund was developed flexibly, but within certain parameters to really address these most frequent barriers. And you can jump ahead a slide or two. This is very small, oh, sorry, go back one. This slide with the small print is a series of examples of the type of things we can pay for. It's kind of broken into categories like the housing navigation, move-in expenses, strategic retention, and then the kind of outlier here that my board and I just felt ethically like we should include is that end-of-life compassionate care for expenses related to end-of-life that Medicaid or Medicare wouldn't cover. Like a living stipend to support hospice in a family member's home, supporting pet needs. But the bulk of the barrier busting fund is paying for things like security deposits, utility deposit. If somebody moves into an apartment and learns all of a sudden that they owe $500 for utility company, they're not going to be able to turn their power on. We can come in and support a payment plan for that. We're also frequently paying for application fees, ordering a birth certificate, working out a payment plan with previous landlords. I'd say probably 85% of what we do is a security deposit. You can jump ahead to the next slide. And I get so excited talking about this program because in the 13 years that I've worked in homelessness, this is what I've always wished existed. And we finally got to create it. We got the flexible funding from some amazing partners in the healthcare system, Pacific Source, Central Oregon Health Council, and as well as the HLC. And we've been able to make such a difference. We've exceeded our goals for the year. We thought we could serve 40 households and we're at 91. We thought we were going to spend 40,000. We've kind of blown through that, spent a little more than double at this point. And we wanted to establish, we have partner agency agreements in place with 21 agencies, meaning that their staff members can submit a direct referral. One really significant thing about this program is the turnaround time. So because we're a small and pretty nimble agency, we can make approved funding and get checks out the door 24 hours, 48 hours, which is often what our competitive housing market requires. And we've just seen incredible success so far. I'm looking at the clock knowing I don't have a whole lot of time, but yeah, I'll come back soon with some actual numbers, but we've seen a 97% so far housing retention rate among the clients who have accessed move-in expenses. We're also in the process of getting a much better data system. So we're going to have Salesforce, and I want to have like a live dashboard on our website and as much data transparency as we can. We're still kind of in the process of building out that scaffolding. So if you can jump to the next slide. Sorry. This is the last slide I stuck on there, just as kind of fine print for you to read on your own, that kind of lists some details about the program requirements. But what's ahead for Fuse is that we're gonna do a rebranding and have a new name that better reflects what we're doing. So I might be reaching out to some of the folks here to help us in that brainstorming and kind of soul searching process. And we're also working with COIC to convene a 2-day housing navigation summit. And that's to provide training, networking opportunities for all the local advocates who are working in housing navigation. How do you do a reasonable accommodation? How do you appeal if somebody's been denied free housing? How do you work on someone's criminal history and do a criminal record expungement? Kind of bringing some of those concrete resources as well as like community building among advocates. So I'm really excited about the work that Fuse has done, and with your support, excited to see what we can do in the future.
Oh, Colleen,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Sorry you had to go through your program, but I think you hit all the high points. So appreciate what you're doing and so glad to know that you have doubled what your goals were for the year. It looks really good. We do need to have our public comment at this moment in time. It is 12:32. Are there any public comments in the room? Is anyone there?
No public comment from the
Oh,
room.
no, you've got one. in
Okay, I see one. Linda Muir has her hand raised. Can she be recognized, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to, first of all, express my gratitude again this month with the emphasis that you all are placing on community engagement. I think it's fantastic. The timeline and the thought that you've put through into this part of the process. I know it's a complicated process, and I think having the community involved early on, I think will help alleviate some of the conflict that's happened in the past. I guess my overall question, I listen to these meetings every single month and I'm plugged into a lot of other meetings and conversations. And I know that progress is being made. I'm like floored to hear that we have almost 600 beds now in Bend, because when I started meeting with Councilor Perkins and other local officials almost 2 years ago, you know, the number was much lower. The goal was 500 in Bend, and now we're looking like we're up over 600. But what I also notice and hear regularly from folks in the community whom I speak with is our numbers are continuing to get worse. You know, yes, we have projects. Yes, we have programs. Yes, we have increased capacity, but our homeless numbers are continuing to increase. What is going to be done about that? And I don't have a good solution to that. I know the managed camps are getting looked at. I'm a big proponent of that. But I would like this body at some point to address these concerns from the community about what do we do about this constant influx of people coming from other places, and also just, you know, others in the community, and our numbers growing. How are we going to manage that? Because we quite frankly can't continue to build more beds and build more facilities and have more camps, you know, as time goes on, because at some point, we're just not going to be able to have that kind of capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. The capacity. Yes. Does anyone else have any public comments to make at this moment? Okay, then let's jump to adjourning. Okay, so we know we need to have a doodle poll for a meeting on the week of the 6th, which cannot be on Wednesday or Thursday to accommodate Kat. And what about our joint meeting? Is there a date? Does the 21st work at all?
For the roundtable, or for?
No, just for our regular meeting? Or do we want to just make it into a roundtable?
Well, I think we had talked before this meeting about how we do need to maybe reschedule November's meeting because it occurs during AOC week, correct?
Right. Yes, that's the number one issue.
And then the following week, that Thursday is Thanksgiving. So you're asking if the 21st works for board members for a rescheduled CHRO
Right.
meeting?
Yes,
Perfect.
I don't know. What day of the week is it?
It's a Tuesday,
it's a Tuesday morning, Tuesday,
One-
like
Not before.
not in the morning. Yep, I know.
Yeah,
Mornings are
okay.
bad. for me.
11. I know, 11.
Could we do 11 on Tuesday?
I could.
That's what I was hoping everyone could look at their calendars and see if that would work.
Yeah. I can do 11 on Tuesday, the 21st.
Okay.
I hope.
Well,
I will follow up with folks after this and we'll just make sure it works.
Okay, yeah, it looks fine for my schedule that day.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Are there any other public comments then? Okay, I don't see anything raised. Thank you again, Colleen, so much. Sorry. You were just a little bit, if you can get us any more information, we would be happy to share it with the community. If you have any updates, maybe by, through this year. When you get, if you help another 10 people and you make it over 100 or something, we'd love to hear that. So thank you.
Love positive.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you then the week of the 6th on it. Please complete your doodle poll to facilitate Chris. And thank you all. And let's hope that some people sign up for safe parking in Bend. Some churches sign up. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
thank you guys.
Bye.
Ciao.